The day was bright in the small village where everyone knew everyone else. The village headman, Chaudhry Saab, had recently married off his beloved daughter to a young man from the nearby town. The boy was known to be polite, innocent, and respectful. But there was one small problem: he was unbelievably foolish. People in his own town often laughed at his literal way of understanding things. If you told him to do something, he would take it word for word and end up turning a simple task into a comedy. Still, Chaudhry Saab believed he would learn with time. Soon after the wedding, it was time for the tradition where the son-in-law visits the bride's family. The household was busy preparing. The women cooked special dishes, the rooms were cleaned, and even the neighbors were curious to see the new groom in action. Everyone had already heard stories about his strange way of thinking, and they were eager to see it for themselves. Finally, the young son-in-law arrived. He wore shiny new clothes, his hair was plastered with oil, and he smiled nervously as he bowed before the elders. The family welcomed him warmly, but many kept glancing at him, waiting for the moment he would say or do something silly. After a while, Chaudhry Saab decided to test him. A fat hen had been brought to prepare for the meal. With a serious face, he pointed to the bird and said, "Beta, since you are now part of the family, it is your honor today to cut this chicken." Everyone sat silently, eager to watch how the boy would handle this simple task. The son-in-law nodded, eyes wide with responsibility. Without asking a single question, he picked up the hen carefully and walked out of the room. The family assumed he was going to slaughter it in the courtyard. Minutes passed, but he did not return. Finally, Chaudhry Saab followed him outside, and what he saw nearly made him faint. The boy had walked to the fields, opened the cage, and with both hands lifted the hen high into the air. Then, with a satisfied smile, he let it go. The bird flapped its wings loudly, squawking in excitement, and disappeared into the bushes. The boy clapped his hands proudly, as if he had just achieved something noble. "What on earth have you done?" shouted Chaudhry Saab. By then, the rest of the family had gathered, and even neighbors came running to see the commotion. The boy turned to them, his face glowing with pride, and said, "Sasser ji, you asked me to cut it, so I cut the cage and freed the poor bird. Why should we kill it when we can let it enjoy its life?" For a few seconds, silence hung in the air. Then everyone burst into uncontrollable laughter. Children rolled on the ground, repeating his words. Women hid their faces to laugh, and neighbors clapped at the absurdity. The sisters-in-law teased, "What a clever brother-in-law we got. Instead of dinner, he gave freedom to our meal." Chaudhry Saab, however, was fuming. He muttered under his breath, "Ya Allah, what kind of gift have I received?" But the boy remained proud. "You see," he explained seriously, "life is precious. Killing is a sin. By setting the chicken free, I showed kindness. Isn't mercy the true quality of a good family?" His tone was so sincere that people laughed even louder. Meanwhile, the poor cook had nothing left to prepare. The family had to rush a servant to the market to buy meat for dinner, while the story spread like wildfire through the village. By evening, the tea stalls buzzed with gossip. One man said, "Did you hear? The new son-in-law freed the hen instead of cooking it." Another laughed, "Maybe next time he will free the buffalo as well." The shopkeeper laughed so hard that he spilled his tea. Back at the house, after dinner was finally served, the daughter whispered to her husband, "Why didn't you just ask what father meant? He wanted you to slaughter the hen, not set it free." The boy blinked innocently, but he said, "Cut it." "How was I to know? He meant something else." She sighed, realizing that her life would be filled with such moments. Yet when she looked at his innocent face and proud smile, she could not help laughing. Perhaps, she thought, his foolishness would become the family's endless source of joy. And that was how the first visit of the foolish son-in-law turned into laughter, gossip, and one lucky hen that was probably still running free in the fields. After the unforgettable incident of the freed chicken, the entire village could not stop laughing whenever the new son-in-law's name was mentioned. For weeks, people teased Chaudhry Saab about his animal rights activist son-in-law, who had chosen to save dinner instead of serving it. Chaudhry Saab himself was still embarrassed, but his wife consoled him by saying, "Maybe the boy just needs guidance. If we give him simple instructions, surely he will learn. With this thought, the family invited him again, determined to give him another chance to prove himself. On the chosen day, the son-in-law arrived once more, wearing fresh clothes and carrying his usual innocent smile. The household greeted him warmly, but there was a hidden tension in the air. The sisters-in-law were already whispering and giggling, wondering what new drama he would create this time. The mother-in-law, however, decided to keep things very simple. She thought, let's give him a small errand. Nothing complicated, nothing confusing. Surely he cannot make a mistake this time. When the time came, she called him into the kitchen and said gently, "Beta, we are short of salt. Please go to the market and bring half a kilo of salt. Remember carefully, half a kilo only." The boy nodded with confidence, as though he had been entrusted with a mission of great importance. He repeated the words, "Half a kilo of salt. Don't worry, Amaji, I will bring exactly that." He put on his slippers and set off toward the market with determination. The family waited for his return, expecting him back within half an hour. But as the minutes turned into hours, people began to grow restless. The children grew hungry, the women delayed cooking, and Chaudhry Saab grew irritated, muttering, "How far can the market be? Why is he taking so long just to bring salt?" Finally, after nearly 2 hours, the son-in-law returned, looking tired and sweaty, but his hands were empty. The moment he stepped inside, the family's eyes widened. The mother-in-law asked anxiously, "Beta, where is the salt?" The son-in-law sighed deeply, as though he had endured a great struggle. Then, with complete seriousness, he replied, "Oma ji, I searched the entire market. I went to every shop, but unfortunately, they were only selling salt in 1 kilo packets. Nobody was selling exactly half a kilo. So, I thought, since you asked for half a kilo only, I must not disobey your words. That is why I came back empty-handed." There was a stunned silence for a few moments, and then the entire household exploded into laughter. The sisters-in-law clapped their hands and rolled on the floor, repeating his words. "Half a kilo only, not 1 kilo." The children ran outside, shouting to the neighbors, and within minutes, half the street was gathered outside, laughing loudly at the new story of the foolish son. The poor mother-in-law was speechless. She rubbed her forehead and said, "Oh, my dear boy, you could have simply bought 1 kilo. I would have used half today and kept the rest for later. Who told you that buying more is forbidden?" But the son-in-law looked genuinely confused. "Oma ji, you told me strictly half a kilo. How could I go against your words? If I had brought 1 kilo, you might have scolded me for not listening. I did the safe thing by not bringing any at all." He explained his reasoning so innocently that everyone laughed even harder. By now, Chaudhry Saab had lost his patience. He slammed his stick on the floor and shouted, "This boy will drive me insane. First, he freed the chicken, and now he cannot even buy salt. What will become of us?" But his anger only made the situation more entertaining for the others. The mother-in-law, between her giggles, teased her husband. "What can we do, Chaudhry Saab? This is the gem you found for our daughter." The sisters-in-law added cheekily, "At least he saves money. He didn't waste a single rupee today." The son-in-law, still unaware that people were laughing at him, stood with pride, believing he had done the right thing. "See," he said, "this is what happens when one listens carefully. Most people make mistakes because they don't follow instructions exactly. But I followed Umaji's words perfectly, half a kilo only. I cannot be blamed if the market does not sell that amount." His explanation sounded so logical in his own head that he puffed out his chest proudly, as though expecting a medal. By evening, the story had spread once again across the village. At the tea stall, men laughed until their stomachs hurt. One man said, "First the chicken, now the salt. What will he do next? Maybe next time he will refuse to buy sugar because they only sell in 2-kilo bags." Another replied, "Mark my words, this boy will soon be famous across 10 villages as the cleverest fool ever born." Back at home, the daughter was embarrassed, but could not stop laughing either. She whispered to her husband, "Why don't you ever ask before acting? Father wanted chicken for dinner, and you freed it. Mother asked for salt, and you returned with nothing. Why can't you think a little before you decide?" The young man looked puzzled, scratching his head. But I am doing exactly what I am told. If your parents want something different, they should give clearer instructions. I am not a mind reader. His wife sighed, realizing once again that life with him would be full of such strange situations. And so the second visit of the foolish son-in-law ended just like the first, with endless laughter, gossip spreading through the village, and his poor in-laws shaking their heads in disbelief. Yet beneath all the confusion and comedy, the family began to accept that perhaps his innocence and silliness were simply part of who he was. Whether they liked it or not, he would continue to turn every simple task into a story worth retelling.